Hey ladies! I am making this video to help any newcomers to makeup, to make you feel empowered and make you feel like you can do this, because so many makeup artists come up with all of these different palettes and so many of these different expensive makeups, and it almost feels impossible to get started. And so for this look, all you need is 4 different eyeshadows. You need a light color, a medium color, a dark color, and then something a little bit darker than your darkest color. For this, I actually used a light tan, and then I used a nice bronzy color as my medium. I actually used a burgundy as my dark, and then I used a dark brown as my darkest color. I'm going to show you how to do this, but just know this. You are awesome, and you can do this, and don't get overwhelmed by all the different products and all the different ways to do it. There's more than one way to do makeup, and that's what makes it amazing. You can make it yours. You can do it your way and still be really successful. So take it from me, I believe in you, so let's get through this together. The first thing I'm going to start with is just priming my eyes, and this I use Urban Decay's eye primer. This isn't necessary, it just makes your eyeshadow go on easier, but do not think that you have to go out and buy this just because I used it in the video. It just makes your life easier later on. Here, I'm going to show you the colors that I use, but remember, just use what you have. And the first step that I do is focus on the middle of my eye that you can see right there. In this, I am using a bronzy brown color. This does not mean that you have to use the bronze color. Remember, it's just a medium color that you could work with. I also want to point out that I am using a flat brush. This makes it smoother to go on. You see how little it is this way and wide it is this way. It can make your life easier. It goes on smoothly. It doesn't fray around in a circle. Right here I am just using that lighter color, so remember, just use the lightest color that you have and just swipe inwards. And don't worry about it going everywhere. That's why we have makeup wipes. It's also why I actually fill in the rest of my base later on. The next thing that I'm going to start to work on is the darkest color. In this I use a round brush because it can go like this and you can easily move it around. It's not that big, but you just want to focus on the outer edges right there and sweep outwards in kind of a triangle shape. And then also you want to pay attention to the shape of your eye. And so my hoods are pretty high up, but yours could be lower or they could even be higher than mine. And so you want to use this brush to crease where your eye moves from your eyeball to your arch right here. So you want to focus on this region right here. You can feel the difference. This is hard, this is soft. You want to run your brush on this inside edge right there, and you can pat it or you can move it back and forth like this, but you want to focus on that edge and not move too far from it. Next thing that you want to begin working on is blending it in. It is important to have good brushes, but don't let it stop you from getting started. You could even go to Walmart and spend $10 on brushes, or you can spend more, but don't feel limited by the fact that you don't have all the necessary resources. So in this, I actually use this big brush right here, and I'm just working it in and just smudging it out. I'm smudging it on the inside, and I'm smudging it around this side, but I'm not really focusing on any other part yet. The next thing I start to do is fill in my eyeshadow, which a lot of makeup artists do not talk about. And filling in your eyeshadow just means that you're using the colors that you previously used and putting them in the same places that you were already working at. The reason is that sometimes when you're doing the smudging, it kind of goes everywhere. So if you would focus on putting it back in there, you don't have to worry and you can make mistakes. Now this next step is optional. I'm using this darker color right here to put it on the bottom of my lash line. You do not have to do that, especially if you're not comfortable touching really close to your eye. Then I would just avoid it entirely until you become more comfortable with it. The next thing I started working on is my eyebrows. I don't normally do this step before I do my foundation, just because I like to fill in my foundation around my eyebrows, and I don't like to have to go back and fill them in, and sometimes the makeup can spread, but I did it here just to show you guys simply how to do this eye makeup. I actually kind of ratcheted this. I had an eyeliner brush that I got in a set and it was too wide for my eyebrow right here, so I used scissors to cut it. As you can see, you're welcome to do the same thing. Honestly, it's not about perfection here, it's about creating art. And in art, you make mistakes, so just go with it. If you watch here when I'm doing my eyeliner, you can tell a few times I actually made mistakes, and I never try to do it in one swing. That's where a lot of people mess up, because they try to do it in one swipe and then it just goes everywhere. So I try to do small strokes. That is the key. In this, I'm using Maybelline waterproof eyeliner. It's pretty good. It has a felt tip. I've found that that's easier to apply with, but again, you want to focus on those small swipes, and if you do make a mistake, just go with it. Obviously, don't fill in your entire face with eyeliner, and sometimes I've had to start over. So don't be discouraged if that happens to you. You're welcome to skip this step if you'd like to, but just know it's all about you. It's all about your creation, and you can do it. Don't give up. Now it's time for mascara. In this, I am using L'Oreal Paris Voluminous Lash Paradise. You use whatever you have, girlfriend. Now, I struggle with dry skin, so I have to make sure that my skin is really moisturized. I've found that Clinique is the best, but there's been days when I've just used Dollar General moisturizer, so I completely understand where you are. The next thing I start working on is my concealer. If you don't have any concealer, don't worry about it. I honestly just started using it about 6 months ago, and it just kind of gives me that extra dimension and does help me fill in some dark circles that I do have just from being tired and getting older. In this, I use Fit Me foundation in 15. The next step I'm going to do is something a little bit different, and honestly the only reason why I do it is just the way my skin is. I struggle with redness, I have a little bit of rosacea, and I've found that I also have primarily dry skin within this region right here. And so I was finding that at the end of the day, my makeup would rub off just in this area. It didn't matter what kind of foundation I used, it didn't matter how nice it was or how not nice. So I've found that doing that extra layer does help me retain it at the end of the day. So the foundation that I'm using is Too Faced Born This Way. I really like it. I went through about 10 different samples at Sephora, and I found that this was the best for me. I didn't have to use that much, and it was still hydrating, and it also didn't make me orange. So this foundation is great, but it may not work for you. So it's important to try out the samples. It's important to see what works for you, and don't get overwhelmed by what everyone is pressuring you to say works for them, because your skin is different. You as a person are an individual, and so therefore what worked for someone else may not work for you. The next thing I'm going to do is apply my powder. I do this just to set it. It's humid in Charleston and I sweat, and then my skin feels kind of greasy. I don't really like the feeling of my face feeling wet when I leave the house. And so I use this Neutrogena finishing powder. I've used a lot of different finishing powders, and honestly I haven't really seen a difference. This is just the one I picked up. It sounded nice, so you can use whatever you want. Now I am just taking a small brush that I use to dot the foundation on my face to fill in that inner parts of my eyeliner that I missed. I wouldn't have done this if I had saved my eyebrows for last, what I normally do. I would normally just use that big brush and put it around my eyebrows, but I added that extra detailing step just because I did my brows previously and I did not want to mess them up. Something else I'm going to begin to work on is my blush, and this I actually use something that's called a baked highlighter. I like it, but you can just use traditional blush if you like to. This is what it looks like for me, and I use a nice big blush brush, and you do a nice sweeping motion outwards as you can see below. The next thing I'm going to work on is using highlight. In this I'm using Becca Cosmetics highlight, and I'm just using it to pat from the inside of my cheekbone to the outside of my cheekbone, and then I'm also doing from the top of my nose to the bottom of my nose, just the very crease. I'm mostly doing it on my cheeks because I do have a lot of shine on my nose and I don't necessarily want to increase that. So keep in mind where you shine and don't put highlight there. The next thing I'm working on is contouring. In this I'm using Too Faced Chocolate. You want to take the brush and you're going to make a 3 shape. As you can see that I'm doing, I'm putting it right here on the inner corner. I'm also going to line it all the way down. I'm going to then take it from my cheek and pull it in towards my mouth. And lastly, if you can feel a part in your face where I like to feel kind of where it's hollow, and I know that's where I need to put my contour. So if you start at about the mid of your ear and then work towards your mouth, that is where your contour line goes right here. And you can put as much or as little as you'd like, but just do what you're comfortable with. In order to do liquid lipstick, I create a V shape going from the top of my corner to the bottom, and the top of my corner to the bottom. It's kind of a X shape that I'm making, and then I fill out the inside edges. I fill out the outside edges of both the bottom and the top, and then I rub it together. Sometimes with liquid lipstick it doesn't stay wet enough for you to put your lips together, and you'll end up like creasing it or you're putting it everywhere. You're welcome to try that method, but I'm just trying to give you a more concrete method to make sure your liquid lipstick goes on correctly. Lastly, I just want to say I'm so tired of people trying to tell you what to do and not empower you, because you are beautiful and you are important, and I hope this video helps you. I hope you can take it to the next level. Please feel free to share some looks with me in the comments. I'd love to see what you created, because you're an artist and I know that you created a masterpiece.